This is Abhishek Sengupta. Welcome back. We are here with another episode of Knowledge Talks. Now, in this episode of Knowledge Talks, we have with us Tom Berry. Now, Tom is based out in London. He's a brand strategist and creative director at Studio Bennu. He can help your business become a thriving brand that people love. Now, as Tom is here with us, we have taken a wonderful and a very interesting topic for discussion: brand strategy for business. First and foremost, Tom, welcome to our show and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good to be here. Thank you.
Right, Tom. Tom, I'm going straight to the discussion. My point number one is brand strategy, an important factor. Now, branding guru Marty Neumeier says a brand strategy is a plan for the systematic development of brand in alignment with business strategy. Now, brand strategy is a part of business plan that outlines how the company will build the rapport and favorability within the market. The goal of brand strategy is to become the memorable in the eyes of consumer so that they decide to patronize your business over competition. Tom, how do you see this as? Over to you.
Okay, yeah, I really see brand strategy as kind of the foundation of basically the foundation of business, really. I think if you start with strategy, everything kind of builds on from that. So kind of it influences the marketing, the messaging, the design, and ultimately what's the coolest thing about branding and strategy is, yes, there's the element of strategy and the element of design, but really what you're playing with is kind of people's expectations and emotions and feelings, which is, hugely powerful. So, it does incorporate a lot of different elements, the strategy itself, but I really see this as kind of the backbone of business, and I see it as, influencing everything else. So, even when it comes down to what a business offers, who's it offering it to, how they want to sound, what do they want to say, I think every major decision a business makes should be influenced by the brand strategy and by the brand itself. I think that's really important because, if it's not, if you're not leading with your brand and consulting with your brand strategy and what your brand wants to be and where it wants to go when you make these decisions, it can end up, you can make wrong decisions. It can end up costing the business quite a lot of money. You could invest in areas that don't work or your customers aren't interested in. So I really see brand strategy as the foundation, and the exciting part of branding is then translating that strategy into visual identity, into the visual design. So yeah, I mean, I see it as the foundation of all business, and it's really almost designing emotions. You're really playing with expectations and emotions, which is the coolest part of it.
Wow, that's great. I really like your certain points that you have rightly mentioned that, brand strategy is a foundation. How do you present your business in front of the general public? That constitutes of the brand strategy. How you position, how you stand, how you, deal with emotions and feelings, and these all form a part of the brand strategy. And second thing, which you have rightly pointed out, it is a tool of influence. With this brand strategy, you can first of all communicate your what exactly is the purpose of business, how is it touching the lives, and how exactly it is giving a solution to certain problem, because every business offers some kind of solution or other to certain problems, a day-to-day problem. It could be existing problem. It can even lead to an enhancement of the solution which is already existing. So out of which definitely, brand strategy helps the consumers, help to outside world know exactly where do you place your company as point number one. Point number two is what exactly do you convey, what is your corporate message, what is your business message, so that exactly is communicated in form of brand strategy. So this is having a lot of influence. You have rightly said that it impacts a lot of influence. It can even make you a little outstanding amongst your competitors. So it is really a foundation, as you have rightly mentioned. Now, this takes me to my next point. Why one need a brand strategy? Now, it is said that when you don't know who you are, why you exist, what you believe in, or what you are trying to achieve, your business suffers. You don't have cohesive brand messaging, your content trends to be inconsistent at the best and contradictory at the worst. As a result, it is difficult to attract people who share your values, or I must say, in short, without a brand strategy, a business loses. Tom, what do you think on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of companies, especially startups, are so keen to, well, quite rightly, invest in their product and their R&D, and then they kind of see marketing and brand as the afterthought. But if you are doing it in parallel or even starting with the brand, I think it gives you a lot of advantages because you know who you're doing it for and what they want, and you can work out how to actually appeal to them, and you can shape your brand as a competitive advantage as well as your product. I mean, there's companies that have great products and terrible marketing and branding that don't go anywhere, and then there's also companies that have lousy products but they just have great marketing and branding, that everybody knows. So I think, ideally you want to try and get both right. You want to have, an innovative product that's different, that's, solving a solution for people, but with a great brand as well. So people really understand it. It's very simple to understand, and they know exactly where it fits in and what it does. And then, after a while, if you can, if you invest in your brand over the long term, it really becomes invaluable, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the great brands out there, they've been going for so long and they've been constantly delivering on the promise and meeting the expectations of their customers and their consumers, time and time again, and building their brand equity. There's only, people kind of fall in love with brands, which is, the most exciting thing about it. It's not really, people do fall in love with products, but the brand plays such a big role in that. And that's what's really exciting. I mean, and if you do invest in your brand, and if you do spend time, working out who you are and what is your purpose, and translating that into an identity that really connects with people on a human level, people don't want to interact with, just faceless corporations or robots or, these kind of things. They want human connection. And I kind of see that as the future of branding kind of moving forward, is, brands, I mean, maybe this kind of ties on to one of your future questions, but I think brands kind of are going to get more personal, and I think that's what people want. And I think if brands, and if you invest in your brand, then it can really be a massive competitive advantage. Will just grow with your business over time, and it will just hold that position in people's minds. People are kind of creatures of habits. So once you've got that, okay, this is what I use for X, or this is my problem, this is what I always buy for this problem. You actually have to shift them quite a lot to be able to take them out of that habit. You have to have a really compelling offer. You have to really go above and beyond to move people out of that pattern. But once you've got them in that pattern, used to buying from you to solve a certain solution, people just want ease. They just want ease of use. They want things to be easy, so they'll just go to the same place. So if you can continuously deliver on your promises, then and invest in your brand and make sure you meet people's expectations, then it's all good. That's the best things you can be doing for your brand.
Oh, very nice points, I must say, Tom. Some of the very, very good pointers we got. In fact, I'm taking down certain points which we you have just said. First is that you may have a great product, but a terrible marketing, or probably I must say terrible branding, or vice versa. So this is a killer combination, I must say. So you have rightly pointed, there has to be a parity and the right balance between them. You should be having a great product, as well as you should be steady and very consistent with your marketing and branding activity. Then only a business will grow. Then only business will survive. Number one. Number two, you have rightly said that investing in brand is a long-term exercise over a period of time that makes the brand a heavy brand, I must say, a brand with a great value, a company with a great value, a business with a great value. Number two. Number three is that people fall in love with the brands. So I must say this is a very, very emotional topic. That touches the heart. Business at times becomes a game of emotion, because if you nurture the emotions properly, the business is done. Absolutely, business is going to flourish. Okay. Third thing is human connect. Many a times we have obviously robotic connect, bot-based connect, but people always like to connect with humans. Of course, every time, because human, I must say, time or human, connectivity at times take time. So bot can fill up that, bot or artificial intelligence, these all can really fill up that space for the time being. But at the end of the day, human connect is always good, always preferred, always expected. Okay. Third thing is that it should meet the people's expectation. So any kind of branding activities, whatever be, let it be a new age branding activity or traditional branding activity, whatever we are referring here as, but it should meet the people expectation, whatever the people are expecting. If the business is meeting that, and as well as if the brand is rightly presenting this in front of the common mass, that the business is done. The very, very good pointers which we got from you, Tom. Now, it takes me to my third point. What goes into a successful brand strategy? The main goal of a successful branding strategy is to let the world know that your brand exists, what the purpose it has, and what defines it. A brand strategy is a fluid in long-term strategy that requires to be revisited over a period of time based on its success and the market demand. Now, branding strategy often involve intangible and not very quantified elements. And when the planning this kind of strategy, it is important to decide from the onset how the success will be measured. So that creates a successful branding strategy. But I must say, such kind of branding strategy differs from product to product, company to company, from with reference to the target market, etc., etc. So over to you, Tom. What do you think on this? What goes into a successful brand strategy? Over to you.
Okay, so I kind of see there's four areas. I mean, I just wanted to pick up on something you mentioned just then, the intangible elements of brand, which is I think some people can kind of get lost on that. They're kind of like, well, what is the purpose? What am I actually getting from this? Because it's so long term and it's so intangible. But what I always say is, if you invest in the intangible, then you can increase the price of the tangible over time. So the more you invest in your brand, and the more aligned your brand is, and the more connected it is with your customers, the more you can slowly increase your prices and increase loyalty as well. I mean, for me, branding is really like a win-win. You're increasing loyalty, you're growing your market share, and also you can increase your prices as well. So I just wanted to touch, that was very interesting, your point on the intangible elements of it. But I really see there's four elements of brand strategy, and some people have different ways of looking at it, and some people have different names and buzzwords and stuff, which are why I think people get so confused by brand strategy. What is a mission, what is a vision, what is all this kind of stuff, and everybody has different takes on what it actually is and what it should be. But largely, I think you can kind of break it down into four large kind of key areas. So once you've done the market analysis and market research, and you've seen if there's a kind of viable option for your business, and there is space in the market, and you've done that initial research, you can then move on to brand strategy. And the four areas are, for me, the internal brand, which is the either internal brand or the core brand. I think you sometimes call it the brand heart, which is basically all about you, what you're doing, why you're doing it, why does it matter, why should people care, really. I mean, this is the kind of part that everybody's going to really connect with. And I think the values, especially in the purpose, I often see branding, it's like just building layers of kind of connectivity with people. So that all these things, on their own, just having some values doesn't mean anything. It's how you put stuff into practice and how you kind of layer things on. So you have values, you put them into practice, you have a purpose, you actually demonstrate it every single day. You have a mission which influences your offering, which influences, who you're offering it to. You have a vision, people really can get behind the vision, they can see where you want to go and they want to help you out. So the first part is the internal brand, which is really kind of getting that connection with people, but it's really all about you as a business owner or a founder and what you do and what you stand for, essentially. The second bit, what I say is it's all about them, which is positioning. So it's about all your customers, researching them, understanding the pain they're dealing with, the problems that they have, where you're going to fit into their life, and all the elements of their life that you're going to play with. And then your competitors, who else is in the market, where you're going to fit in, how you're going to be different, where you're starting now, where you want to go, mapping that out. So the positioning is all about them, the customers and the competitors, and then also looking at your offering, because that's kind of essential to your competitors and your customers. And then I see the external brand, which is the third part, which is kind of back to you, but how you reflect yourself to the market. So that's about your messaging, your tone, your personality, your character. And that goes back to it's almost like a linear structure, because that kind of goes back to who you're doing it for. If your target market, the people are very traditional, your tone might be quite a serious traditional tone. If it's younger kind of people and what you're offering them is more playful, and that's going to tie into how you express yourself. So it's really, the third part is really about expression, and this element, I think, the external brand and expressing yourself could on its own be a competitive advantage. But if you do it really well, you see brands that do that third element really well, and that is really what makes them, their kind of character and their flair and how they, their personality and how they sound. And you almost lose the fact that you're interacting with a product or a business or whatever. Ben and Jerry's could be your friend, almost, like people, this is the part that people really fall in love with. It's like, oh, they're so funny, they said this, they did that. And that also ties very strongly into the visual identity, taking that element, translating to visual identity, but also that ties in heavily with the marketing as well, marketing campaigns, what you say, who you're saying it to, and all this kind of thing. And then the fourth part of it is the experience. So looking at how people interact with you, and all the different touch points, and looking at it from a kind of holistic view and making sure there aren't, it's not too one-sided, and, people can contact you and you can interact with them on different levels. And, that kind of ties into when you launch a new product and things like that. So they're the kind of four elements that I see brand strategy, and it's fairly linear. I mean, it's going to differ a little bit depending on B2C or B2B or your industry and stuff like that, but largely those four areas are pretty big and they're pretty general, and most companies will have to kind of go through each one of those four, and yeah, I mean, just see where they stand in each one.
Wow, that's pretty amazing, Tom, I must say. Okay, I have noted here 3 points. Point number 1 over is this: you have rightly said that more you invest in the intangible products, I must say intangible elements rather, the price of the tangible products has got a scope of getting up. So that is what. So more you invest in branding, more your brand becomes heavy, and more your brand becomes heavy, you have a scope of giving more value with a higher price. So definitely this is point number 1. Secondly, you have rightly mentioned one of the key reason for that, it also increases loyalty, because in this market where it's a free market throughout, if someone is not giving a proper service or proper product, we can always we can shift our loyalty. If the customer shifts the loyalty, everyone, even B2B, B2C, everyone is the same scenario nowadays. So with the right branding, that brand loyalty is something which is getting built, or which gets built, I must say, over a period of time. And the four elements which you have really mentioned, it's really amazing. It's, I must say, one of the easiest way to understand the brand strategy, the elements of brand strategy. It's one of the easiest way. There are so many theories on that. There are so many, the shelves of books were written on this, but it is one of the easiest, one of the most
Probably read them
simplest
all.
way. Absolutely, very. It's a wonderful way you have really mentioned, and wonderfully you have explained. Now, this takes me to my fourth point: brand strategy and business positioning. You have to be ready to determine your firm's brand positioning within the professional services marketplace. This includes how is your firm different from others, and what should the potential clients within your target audience choose to work with you, not with your competitors, not with others, or any other player in the market. Why he or she choose you? Could you enlighten us on this? Over to you, Tom.
Yeah, I think when you are, I mean, positioning is such an important part of branding. And I think if all strategy has its foundations in research. So, strategy is only really good as, the kind of research and the insights that you put in. I made an analogy the other day of, if your brand strategy is an engine, then the research is the fuel. So I think what's really important when positioning is the research you do and really understanding the market, and seeing, who else is out there and where you are, and then also where you want to go, and mapping yourself out there. But I think, there's a few elements of positioning which are really important. One is, the promise you make to your consumers, and being very clear on that, so they know exactly what to expect, and you can either meet it or go further than that, which is really important. And I think also when it comes to positioning, there needs to be a strong focus on differentiation, which comes from being able to talk about your offering in a very simple, understandable way, and then being able to phrase your messaging in a way that people understand where it fits in the markets. Because it's all fine you understanding all that, but if your customers don't understand what the difference is between you or XYZ, then that whole thing is kind of wasted. So a huge part of the positioning and the differentiation is the messaging, and getting people to understand the work that you've done behind the scenes. So I think being able to articulate your promise and your message clearly, so people can understand that easily and simply. People don't have a huge amount of bandwidth for marketing a brand, so it's got to be really simple and really fast to understand. And I think also you can then take all that research and those insights in the positioning, and then when you come to translate that into the visual identity, that ties into where you fit in the market. If you look at, I like the kind of case study of the streaming wars at the moment between Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff. Like, that's very easy to understand, all the different offers, but also they've translated that research and those insights into the visual identity very easily. You can go, okay, well, Netflix is red, and they make their own shows, and they have the XYZ that they're famous for. Disney are blue, and they have Star Wars, and they have Marvel, and you can see where they fit into in their price point. So, and this should be the case for every business when it comes to positioning. You need to make sure you spend a lot of time researching and understanding the insights of your competitors in the marketplace. So then when it comes to your messaging and articulating that promise, people easily know where you fit in, but also from a visual identity point of view, they can go, oh, okay, yeah. Because if you get that wrong, they can go, oh, wait a second, what's the difference between them and them? They look kind of similar. So you need to be able to take that differentiation, that positioning, and translate that to the visual identity as well. It needs to be really kind of all-encompassing. That's a huge influence on brand. Because if you make that mistake and you don't understand the market, or where you are, where you're going to fit in, or how it's going to change over time, or even looking at trends in the market, your visual identity won't connect with people, they won't understand it, and ultimately, you won't make, as many sales as you could have done. So, that's kind of what I have to say on positioning, but it's a huge, very powerful element of brand strategy.
Wow, that's great. That's really great. Some of the amazing pointers which we got from you. First and foremost, you have rightly mentioned that you have to make the others understand what exactly you are doing, what exactly are your values, what exactly is your purpose. That part is something which you need to communicate in order to, place your brand properly. Point number one, and place your, this will also help you to, define your business and position your business in the market field. Point number one. Point number two, I have already mentioned, that is a clear communication. Whatever are your values, whatever is your differentiation, this has to be communicated in a very clear manner to the consumers, to the marketplace, to everyone. And third thing is that understanding the competition. We have to first understand the competition, then only we can differentiate them, or I must say we can distinguish ourselves from the mass or from the competitors. You have rightly given the examples of, Netflix, Amazon Prime, or probably Disney, and they have really differentiated from their color, from their content type, from their, it's everything from their, I must say, the user interface. It's all different. So that's how they have, differentiated. That's how they have positioned themselves. And whenever we think of Amazon Prime, we know how the Amazon Prime looks like. When we think of Netflix, we know how the Netflix look like. And like that, there's a huge set of differentiation. It's not only in content, it's not only in a user interface, but also there is also a psychological impact, I must say, on the customers, because that's what is a key element of branding. That psychological. Whenever I'm thinking of Amazon Prime, it has to be something. When I'm thinking of, say, any Apple, it has to be in a different. It looks different, it feels different. And when we're thinking of Samsung, probably it feels different, it looks different, and it's everything is different. So that's what is the emotional match which is going on. So that emotional, I must say it's an emotional impact which could be, I must say, emotional impact is one of the byproducts of branding and the brand and the business positioning. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful point which you have just mentioned. Now, this takes me to my next point: brand strategy and goal defining. As you develop a brand strategy, it helps to start at the beginning. In other words, beginning by setting your business goals. Why are you creating a new brand? What do you hope to achieve by launching a new brand? These long-term objectives on the basis of companies' strategic branding efforts, these are all, I must say, these are all the real byproducts of the common branding exercise, what we say as. For example, if you are trying to reach a new audience, your brand strategy for achieving the goal is likely to be different from a business that want to steal the market share from a category leader. So this has to be absolutely different. In case number one, the strategy has to be different. In case number two, the strategy has to be completely different. So that's why the goal definition is the fundamental starting point of any brand strategy. What is your take on this, Tom? Over to you.
Yeah, I think you make a very good point. I mean, understanding essentially what the brand is and why it's there, and the goal behind it is very important. And that this kind of ties into why people rebrand as well. Why what you're setting out to do when you start a brand, and what you want the brand to do, and over different kind of life cycles of the brand as well. I mean, and the product life cycle. I was recently writing about the brand Beats Audio, Dr. Dre, Beats, which was very interesting in how they position their various products over time. It's going to be very different, when you first launch a brand compared to if you rebrand down the road, and how the market changes and your target market changes as well. But yeah, I mean, the goal that you want to achieve is very important. And I think when you first start a brand, it makes a lot of sense to kind of shape the brand in the position you want to have straight from the very start. So if you want to be, you know, from the Beats example that I was writing about the other day, you know, they're the first products they brought out was super high end. And that was the position they wanted to own in people's mind in the market. That's the position that they could see, you know, there was space in the market for another very high end audio brand. But then as time went on, they then capitalized on that position they had taken from the start to then bring out products that were possibly not as high quality as the first one. So, you know, looking at your offering, how your offering is going to change, you know, where you expect to make more money and where your profit margins are going to be moving forward, I think is a very important element. You know, at the very start, you know, startups, young brands, you know, they don't have the brand equity to spend. You know, I really see brand equity as you know, a currency of a brand is the brand equity is really the currency that you can kind of spend. But when you start a brand, you don't have any, or, you know, if you're down the line, you have to rebrand because something's gone really wrong, or you're losing market share, or no, you know, customers are moving elsewhere or whatever, you suddenly have to rebrand. It's got to a threshold where your brand equity is either negative or going down, that you're then in a position to rebrand. So you know, the brand equity is a currency, I think. And I think, you know, when you're starting, you've got to save it before you can spend it. So you want to save it and start from a position that you want to hold. And then once you have that position and you have the brand equity, oh yes, I know, you know, Beats are super high quality and they're studio quality and they're used by X, Y, Z, and, you know, now they're blending fashion, all this kind of new stuff into the audio market, really cool. So they hold that thing and then hold that position. And then once they've got that position and that brand equity around the brand, and they've been around for a while and they have that position, you can then spend it onto other things, move into new markets, you know, bring out new products, bring out products with higher profit margins. So I think, yeah, when you're setting out a goal of what your brand wants to do, you've got to look at, you know, when, you know, are you a fresh startup? Has no one ever heard of you? Is the main focus going to be on, you know, saving that brand equity before you can spend it, or is it a rebrand? What's the goal going to be? How are you going to shape the brand to be different from what it was before? You know, are you going to, you know, just leave all the brand equity that you have from your previous brand and just completely start afresh, or are you going to try and save some of that? You know, so I think, yeah, there's a few elements when it comes to kind of goal setting around branding, but I think thinking about yeah, you know, your place in the market, where you want to be, where you want to go, and, you know, thinking about how much brand equity do you actually have from the start. I mean, sometimes at the start you might start and you actually might have a lot of brand equity because it's kind of, you know, borrowed, you know, credibility from someone. You know, if someone really famous or someone very notable started something, yeah, their brand would be new, but the brand has the credibility and the brand equity from their founder or XYZ, or maybe they have a patent, or maybe that, you know, there's several, you know, things that a brand can do to kind of get that credibility, you know, a lot of it at the start, and then you can build on that through, you know, brand strategy and the visual identity and you know, the business strategy. But yeah, I think yeah, you've just got to think about yeah, lots of different things, and I think the goal is very important. And yeah, of course, understanding you know, who you're doing this for. You know, the customers really have ultimate power. You know, they decide if you live or you die. You know, are you gonna be the market leader or you're not? You know, and understanding the different types of customers, you know, and understanding where they all fit in, so that, you know, there's so many different elements of branding and being on brand and aligning everything so people can really understand you is very important. You know, and I think the process for branding, you know, there is a lot of similarity between whether you're doing it from the very start or where you're doing it further down the road. Yeah, I think setting clear goals and understanding, you know, the brand equity you have, and why you have it and how you're going to spend it, or if you don't have any, how you're going to get it, and where you're going to be, in 5-10 years down the line. I think that there's an element of the first section that, the internal brand, which I like to look at, which is time, which kind of plays into this brand equity element of branding, which is, where are you now? Where do you want to be in the future? And if you're rebranding, what are you keeping? What are you losing? What are you going to gain in the future? So looking at how you're going to move as time goes forward is also very important.
Well, that's pretty interesting, I must say, Tom, and some of the wonderful pointers we got from you. First and foremost, you have rightly pointed out why exactly, what is the purpose of branding? That is very, very important. Branding for a new brand is completely different, and branding for a rebranding or of the same brand is completely different. Many of the companies, you have rightly pointed out that they go for rebranding. That's a huge exercise because, that's what is important in the present world. Secondly, you have really picked up a very nice topic, that is the brand equity. Brand equity is a currency, as you have rightly mentioned. You have to first save it, then start spending it. And another point which you have really pointed, that for startups, they don't have brand equity at during the start, so they have to first build their brand equity. They have to first make their brand equity, which acts as a currency, and slowly they can use that in the due course of time. Last but not the least, you have rightly mentioned that customers are the kings. You have to first find out for whom you are doing it for, what customer wants, what is exactly they are looking for. If the customer accepts the branding, you are the king. But if not, probably you are going to work a little more harder. You have to fight for it, you have to rework on this, because they have a lot of power, you have rightly said. Now this takes me to my next point, the branding and short-term trap. It is easy to get caught in a short-term activities and track tactics, I must say, that drives business today. But when it comes to building a brand, that acts as a big mistake. The branding aren't built overnight. So the brand strategy could not be focused on the short-term tactics or short-term gain plan, I must say, but rather on a long-term goal and sustainable growth target basis it should be planned for. Now, what is your opinion on this, Tom? Over to you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mistakes that businesses can make when it comes to branding, and I think sometimes people get frustrated because it is, like you said, it is a long-term plan, but it's long-term results as well. So if you deliver over a long time, people will buy from you over a long time. It's one of those things that if you can show why you're good and how you do it and why it's better over a long period of time, then like I said, customers will take a long time to move to something new or better, because the new guys, or the new businesses and the new brands have to have such a hugely different kind of offer to really break that cycle of people just buying the same solution over and over again. I think also another thing which is really important in branding, and I think sometimes people can struggle with, is the whole idea of alignment. And I think if you have so many different touch points and so many different messages, things can, and so many different offerings, it can often get very difficult to make sure everything is aligned and on brand, and doing it is everything you're doing connected with your mission, because if it's not, if it's not really why you're here, why are you producing that, and that question, why are you producing that, or why are you making this, is actually quite a big question. Okay, well, we're just producing it because we think there's a gap in the market that we could just make a quick buck or whatever it is. It's just like, okay, well, that's a short-term play which will then damage your long-term brand equity. So that you're trading off your brand equity for short-term gain there. So I think keep making sure everything's aligned, and I think especially with startups, doing, mastering, certain element, then moving on, instead of kind of spreading yourself super thin, making sure you really understand each touch point and how they work and how they interact with the consumer before you suddenly add something else in, or add another product or another feature or whatever. Make sure you're completely happy and the messaging is on point and that people understand what it is you're doing, and you're being truthful and honest and authentic with everything you do, and it's connected with why you're doing it. It's connected with your purpose, it's connected with your mission, it's connected with your values, so people can kind of understand and they can connect with the brand, before you do anything else. It don't just make stuff and just get stuff out there for the sake of it. I think sometimes businesses will be like, oh, okay, we're just going to do this. Like, well, why are you doing that? Oh, because everybody else is doing that, or no one's doing it, or oh, we just need more features, or it's like a knee-jerk reaction, where actually the thing is with brand strategy, it's such a long-term play. It makes a lot of sense to just step back and say, okay, well, why are we making this new product or new service? Why are we putting this new offering out there? Okay, is it connected to why we actually started the business? Is it connected with what we actually want to be doing? Is it connected with who we actually want to be helping? Is because you could create a product and if it's for a different market, or if it's slightly different from what you previously produced, or the messaging is going to be different, all this kind of stuff. It's not only hard to sell because it doesn't fit in with your brand, it kind of alienates all the other offerings that you've got, and kind of everybody, all the other customers and everybody else who's interacting with your brand kind of gets caught off guard as well. Like, oh, okay, hold on, I thought they were like luxury luggage, and now they're making like, I don't know, bougie kind of handbags or whatever, because that's where they think the market's going. Like, okay, well, maybe they don't make luxury luggage anymore. Maybe the luxury luggage isn't very good, even though maybe they haven't changed how they're making that, So I think, just be true to who you are, and everything you do, kind of like we were saying at the beginning, everything you do kind of go back to your brand. What do we do really well, and make sure when you move, whether it's kind of into different markets, kind of horizontally or with new offerings, just make sure everything is aligned with your brand, because that is so important. I mean, especially the offering and the price and everything. If people are going to expect to pay a certain price, and then so if it's way too low or way too high, or if you're not articulating it with your messaging well, and these things, because people have a very kind of short attention span, they're very quick to just kind of, oh, okay, I don't understand that new offering. Okay, I don't understand that. So when you're making changes to your business, or growing a startup, it almost, from a brand point of view, it kind of needs to be not necessarily slow, but it all just needs to make sense, like easily for a customer to understand. Oh, okay, they developed this creative bit of software, so now they're developing this creative bit of software. Makes sense. Oh, they made, and another really cool thing that brands, great brands can do is adding extra value to their offering. So if I saw the other day, there was a sun cream brand, and they had a whole website and app and all this kind of stuff around monitoring UV in any part of the world, and but that ties into, that makes sense because they make sun cream. If they suddenly started making like a social media app or whatever, or like a place to find a bar on a beach, you'd be like, I don't understand this. These guys are sun cream. So you got to make sure everything just kind of makes sense. There's a bit of common sense to this. There's a bit of strategy. There's a bit of kind of looking at your brand, revisiting your brand strategy. I think it's very beneficial to revisit your brand strategy, probably more than you would like to. Go back. Okay, we wrote down these, we had a session with a whiteboard 6 months ago or whatever. We wrote down these values. Have we actually done anything to demonstrate we have these values? Are these values actually leading us to where we want to go? Are they connecting with people? Okay, then let's not start again, but let's go back and work out how we can make a plan moving forward to actually, or maybe you didn't start again. Maybe you're like, oh, well, we had these values, but actually they don't make any sense for what we're doing, and we're not using them, so change them. So I think that's a few common mistakes that brands can make. It's kind of moving too fast, not making sure things are aligned. I definitely see a lot of startups kind of falling into this trap of not doing any branding because they don't really fully understand everything that goes into it. I think there's this kind of common misconception of brand strategy that it's okay, well, we just, or branding in itself, you just need a logo, or maybe you need a logo and then a color, and then like maybe I'll just write down a value that I randomly think of and put it in a drawer or whatever, and you can be like, oh yeah, we have a brand. So I see a lot of startups that are quite keen to kind of rush into, oh, we've got to get marketing, let's just start marketing. Is it email marketing? Are we sending out staff? Are we doing events? Or this kind of, oh, well, let's just pick one and just go for it. Well, actually, when you have a strategy, a brand strategy, and you have a marketing strategy, these decisions are actually really quick to make. When you say, okay, we've got to do some more marketing, or we've got to make a campaign. That once you've got the strategy, those decisions are actually very easy to make because you know who it's for, you know what you're selling, you know what the message is, you know the tone, all this kind of stuff. You just have to go and put together the puzzle pieces. You need to get the creative, you need to get the messaging, you need to work out where it's going to go and how people are going to see it, how you're going to get it there. There are elements to marketing campaigns, but when you don't have any strategy or any brand behind it, that's where it becomes really tough because you're like, okay, we've got to start marketing. Okay, who's this for again? And why would they want it? And what is our credibility? And what are we going to say? And how are we going to say it? And but maybe we just need a logo. Maybe we don't even need a logo anymore. Maybe just get a color. So it just spends some, especially with startups. It's obviously different depending on what stage your business is at. Startups just spend a little bit of time working out your brand strategy from those 4 areas I spoke about before, and then your marketing strategy, and then every decision becomes a lot faster, and it increases your return on investment as well. Because if you're investing plan and stuff, marketing campaigns, ads, and you don't even know who it's for, or you don't even have a brand name or whatever, that's just wasted money. And then bigger brands that have a lot more touch points, a lot more offering, and there's just their ecosystem of different things that are going on is just so big. It makes a lot of sense to regularly revisit your brand strategy and just revisit kind of what you're doing, what are you offering, who's it for, is it aligned with our messaging, go through your user journey of every single offering, how people interact with it, where they hear it, how they get acquainted with it, to buying it, all the way to the end to buying it and enjoying it and telling people about it. Go through that with every different offering and seeing if that's aligned with your brand. Does that really make sense? Sometimes I'll be out and about and I'll see a brand and I'll be like, why have they made this? This is not them. This is not who they want to be. This is not who their customers are. This doesn't make any sense. And then in my mind, their position of whatever industry they're in, you move them one or down, down 1 or 2 on the ladder. If it's like high fashion or whatever, and you see, something that they're doing something, and you're like, oh, well, I thought they were appealing to this people and they were making this for these people. Oh, but now they're not. So you just move them down, and then their brand equity over a lot of people, over a lot of time, that's when the brand equity goes down. That's when, as your brand equity goes down, you're going to end up competing on price more. The higher the brand equity, the more the more you can charge, and the less you just almost don't need to worry about price. Obviously within reason, but so there's a lots of things to consider. But if you take it back to first principles, of branding is really delivering expectation and delivering promises. Just really look at what you're doing as a business as a whole. Look, are we delivering on what we say we are, and is it authentic to who we want to be, and the change we want to see in the world? If it's not, just drop it, because over the long run, right now I might make you some money, but over the long run, it affects your brand equity, and then everything, all the price of everything will have to come down.
Wow, that's really amazing, Tom, I must say. And some of the wonderful pointers I have got, and in fact, I'm writing down a lot of notes after hearing to you. First and foremost, you have rightly mentioned that brand alignment is very, very important, because a person can a person or a company can offer a lot of things. It can be item number one, item number two, item number three, whatever you want to buy. But if these are not connected with the mission and vision, or what exactly is your purpose of business, you know it can not only bring you down, point number one, it can also confuse the market. Market has to be absolutely clear, what exactly are you offering, number one, what exactly are you communicating to them, what are your values, what is your mission, etc., etc. So brand alignment is very, very important, point number one. Point number two, you have mentioned that at times short term play destroys the long term brand equity. So one has to be absolutely careful about it. This, you have rightly mentioned that brand equity is a currency, and one has to really save this currency, one has to increase this currency. But under all circumstances, destruction of this currency should not be there. Person should be really taking all possible efforts in order to save this. So we should not be doing any short term wrong place which can really destroy a long term brand equity. Third is that the connection. Many a times you have rightly mentioned that things what offer, it doesn't gel with the purpose, or the customer market or the target market you are dealing with. So whatever you are offering, that offering should be well communicated, and it should be aligned with the mission, vision, and other statements of branding. And third thing is that startups many a times a bit hesitant in branding activities. You have rightly mentioned that they should be very serious with this. Number one, should be very, very cautious about the common mistakes that the business do. And uh, you know brand I must say, the brand creation or brand strategy is a very, very long-term strategy. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not that today we think and tomorrow our company becomes a big brand. That's not going to happen. We have to give it a time, consistent efforts, and of course we have to keep avoiding these common mistakes which people do. And I add a point from my side. Many a times I must say, take a professional help if you are not well versed with it, because professional help really matters. Of course, one might have to spend a little money, but that money one can gain, or I must say, that can have an amazing return of investment. So treat it as an investment. Now, this brings me to my next point: brand strategy and brand heart. Now, every brand holds a basic set of beliefs that influence everything they do. We call this beliefs as brand heart. Brand heart comprises of four elements: purpose, vision, mission, and values. Now, these four elements form the core element of communication during the brand exercises. Now, as per you, how important is brand heart in the brand strategy? Over to you.
Yeah, it's really, really important, and I think a lot of people can. It's also the thing is it's very easy to dismiss as well, because it's intangible, and it's not clear if there's any sort of return on investment from it. You kind of just have to trust the process. But if you have a very clearly defined, there's lots of different terms, the brand heart or the core brand or whatever it is, but it's those kind of four elements. If they're very clearly defined, then it does, it's those layers of credibility and connection. And I think what all great brands are constantly striving to do is really just connect with people, and that's how people essentially, eventually kind of fall in love with brands, is because they're so connected with the brand on so many different levels. If you ask someone, oh, why do you love X? And they'll be able to give you loads of reasons. They don't just go, oh, I went in the store once and, it was discounted, and I've got it for cheap. Well, honestly, I'd be interested to know how many people would actually, give that as a reason for loving a brand. Yeah, it was cheap, or it was a good price. Like, I would argue that most people, it's lots of different things other than the price. I would say, oh, well, their story's really good. It really connects with me on this level. They've got really strong values that they're putting into practice. Oh, did you know this about them? Did you know that about them? Oh, I went to one of their events, and the people I interacted with were really nice and friendly, and I tried their new product, and they listened to my input, and I feel like I'm you know, influencing the brand, and I'm part of the community, and you know, I go to this running thing every Saturday with them, and then there, and they give us free water or whatever, you know, and it's different layers of you know, that credibility and that authenticity kind of build up over time. But right at the center, you know, is defining you know, your purpose, which is, you know, why you're actually doing it. You know, why should people actually care? This is kind of like the philosophy of brand, if you will. The vision. So, you know, how do you see, you know, what will the world look like when your business is successful? You know, which is really important because people get behind the kind of compelling vision. If someone says, well, you know, if you look at Elon Musk, the visions that he has behind his brands are so compelling, which is why, well, I mean, obviously, you know, the technology and the first mover advantage and all the kind of the other elements, but the brand, you know, the core brand of his businesses is incredibly strong, and the vision that he articulates through different brands is very, very clear and very, very powerful. And every single one has, you know, you look at SpaceX and you go, oh, okay, so he's trying to get to Mars. Okay, super clear. And I think there's even a date on it. You know, I think he's put a date on it, a bit like JFK trying to get to the moon by, you know, a certain date. I think Musk has done the same thing. You know, you look at Tesla and he's just like, okay, well, I just want to eradicate fossil fuels. You're like, wow, let me get behind this. You know, it's not that, I mean, you know, the cars are cool and the technology is cool and the, you know, all the data and the, you know, everything else that he's going. But really, if you go, well, if I buy this car, then I'm contributing to this larger vision. You know, I'm a part of this story. I'm part of the brand. I'm you know, I'm part of something. You know, people really want to be part of something bigger than themselves. You know, so, and I think if brands can offer that, you know, look, this is what we're trying to do. Isn't this cool? Don't you want to be a part of it? You know, if it's compelling like that, what Elon Musk is doing with so many of his brands, people go, wow, yeah, exactly. And you know, it's very easy to dismiss because you can't put it on the balance sheet. You can't say, well, let's break down how much, you know, Tesla's worth X amount, and their vision is also, oh, on the balance sheet it's worth X billion. You know, it's not possible to do that. But I think it played a huge part in how people interact, how they feel, and their emotion, and you know, eventually kind of falling up. I mean, you know, Elon Musk has an army of, you know, super fans, you know, that are just do whatever, you know, they just love every single business he does. And that part of the reason is because his vision for what he's doing is so compelling. So the vision is really important. You know, sit down and go, well, what would the world look like, you know, when we're successful? And when, I mean, let's be really specific. Let's put a date on it, you know, and then people can go, okay, I understand what you're trying to do, and they're trying to do it by this time. You know, there's a little bit of urgency and time on it. So, you know, we've got to try and kind of help them out. I want to be part of this. You know, I'm gonna really be part of the future. So you got your purpose, you got your vision, your values. I think are again hugely important, and quite often, you know, people will write them down and just put them in a drawer, or, you know, not think about them ever again, or they'll just think of something really generic that doesn't connect with people. Like, we're going to be, okay, you know, it's 2022, you know, let's look at the news, how people are thinking. Okay, well, we're going to be environmental. There's our values, but, you know, make the values specific to you and your business. Okay, you know, start with this kind of bigger idea of environmental, but what does that actually mean for you? You know, instead of just saying environmental or sustainable or whatever, you know, make it a bit more personal. You know, people, you're not interacting, people don't want to interact with, you know, just an entity, you know, or you know, or a business. They want to interact with, you know, a flavor and character and personality. And I think you can really and people will connect with values in a really strong way, and the real magic comes when people, the brand's values align with the customer's values. You know, so, you know, understanding kind of goes back into, you know, the customers being king. You know, work out what as a whole, you know, the target market values are, you know, and use that to inform your brand values, and then put them into practice and show that you're actually doing something about it. You know, because it goes back to alignment again. You know, if you have these values and you have a corporate page or whatever, and you say these are our values, but you're not actually doing anything about it, that's eventually, you know, that really will damage your brand, because then you're not being authentic. You know, and people can't trust, you know, a brand that is authentic. And trust really is key to loyalty. Like, if you want to have loyal customers, you need trust first. Trust comes from authenticity. You know, so write these things down, make sure they make sense and they're specific to you. They're not just generic. They're specific to you and your brand and who you're doing it for, and you know why you're doing it. And then actually write down, well, this is actually what we're going to do about it. You know, if you have a brand that, you know, is one of the values is based around the environment or sustainability, or what, well, show me, you know, what are you actually going to do? You know, there's a brand in the UK that called Innocent Drinks that makes smoothies, juices, and stuff like that. But one of their core values is based around the environment, and they actually put it into practice. You know, through the energy they use in their headquarters is you know, it's from renewable sources, and you know they have different types of materials in their offering and how they produce stuff and how things are made and manufactured and how people are paid, you know, and how they look after their own people. So, you know, put this into practice and show people what you're doing is really important. Yes, and then mission is kind of the last part of that. And I like to think of mission is kind of quite a big kind of offering, you know, as a whole, to not only to customers but to the world, really. You know, like what are you giving the world? I think that's really kind of how I see it, if you boil it right down. If you look at, you know, I think Nike is one of the best brands, and I think you know, at the moment I think their brand is really strong. And if you look at their mission statement, it's giving innovation to their customers, you know. So if you look at, you know, the best brands and their mission statements, it's really kind of the large offering as a whole. You know, you take everything you do and what you stand for, you know, and who's it for and everything, and then if you were just going to kind of put that down to one sentence, like, well, you know, what is this whole thing comprised of? Okay, well, it's innovation for, you know, athletes, or, you know, whatever it is. So they're kind of the four elements that make up the internal brand, or the brand heart, or, you know, however you want to say it. But I think the most important thing is don't dismiss them, you know, because they should be able to influence everything, and then prove it, you know, actually show what you're doing. And when you're you know, putting it out there, when you're putting it into practice, this part of the brand can actually influence everything else. You know, I wrote about Tom's, the shoe brand. Do you know Tom's, the shoe brand? They make kind of epidural shoes.
Yes.
Yeah, and their whole brand, everything is kind of influenced by their values. So everything they do, all of their offering, and then they've even gone as far as translating that into their visual identity. You know, so it started in Argentina in this kind of charitable setup there, and then they kind of built out from this kind of charitable setup in Argentina. But you know, their whole story and what they stand for and all their values, you know, influence everything else. So you look at their visual identity, and it's kind of like the Argentinian flag and the different colors and how they sound and how they talk. It all goes back to actually the very beginning, the story, the narrative, and the values that, you know, they hold, which is kind of why they started. You know, so it is actually a lot more powerful than you think, and I think that it's kind of really limitless to what you can do with this, you know, the very beginning part of brand strategy, because you can take that and then you can use it to influence everything and connect with customers and layer that connection and make people, you know, win the hearts and minds of customers. That's the part, you know, this is the part that people are going to connect with, and all the different layers, if you do it right. Or, you know, and this is really where all the brand equity is going to kind of go. You know, this is all, you know, this is right in the beginning. You know, this is right at the center. You know, everything should be connected to this. or you can just say, oh well, there's no ROI to this, let's just dismiss it. Who's going to read our values anyway? So it's kind of up to you. I mean, I'm a brand strategist. I design visual identity. I'm definitely on the side of, this is hugely powerful, and this is where, your connection and your personality and your competitive advantage and everything. This is where everything's at the seed of the brand. This is where it all starts at the very start. It's all about you. And then your job is just go out and take that and articulate it in a way that people kind of can understand and eventually fall in love with.
Wow, that's amazing. I must say it's one of the amazing descriptions. Just three quick points I have just noted down. First, I really like that point that you have to first find out how the world looks when the business gets successful. And you have really given very good example of Elon Musk, because, his clarity of, mission, what exactly he is thinking. And of course, giving a date is another important factor over here. Second thing is that the trust factor you have mentioned, because business runs on trust. Because I always say that people do not pay us for the product, people or the services. People pay us for the trust they have on us. So trust factor is very important, which you have really touched in one of the points. And third, you have really made a wonderful point is that people connect. Whatever you do, if the people and their emotions do not get connect with your mission, your vision, or probably with your business, so whole exercise is not going to succeed. So it's a very big topic, I must say, Tom. But you have rightly concluded that how exactly this brand heart, which I have said, the four core elements, is going to influence the brand strategy, how it is going to influence the positioning of the business, and how it's a very macro level concept, but it has got its implication everywhere, probably in the sales, in the marketing, in operations, in connecting with people, in PR, everywhere. This has got its connect. So this takes me to the next point, which is an interesting point: modern day brand strategy and digital influence. In modern day brand strategy, it is totally different from what we have seen 10 years back. The major contributor for this change is the growth of digital media. Now, with onset of Web 2.0, and of course, we are coming up with the next version of the web very soon, the social media branding exercise have taken a full turn. The ways of branding and the measure of the impact of branding too got modified. How do you see this change as?
Yeah, the future of branding is very exciting. But branding originally started with kind of fast-moving consumer goods in supermarkets, and then eventually kind of cars. And now I think a lot of businesses, most businesses, really understand the value of branding and understand, if it's done right, it can create, a very strong connection with their customers, and it's a huge point of loyalty. And I think the future is really exciting. There just seems to be more as branding and the landscape changes. There's just more interaction and more touch points as time has gone on. And I think this is a huge opportunity for brands in the future. And I honestly think that the future of branding is to become more personal and more human. That third step of the strategy process of the external brand and your personality, I think is really the future. And I think a lot of brands in the future are really going to, invest in this quite heavily and put in a lot of time and effort into that. You can see that already at the very, very high end, the $1 billion brands at the moment. They're trying to bring out offerings that really connect with people on a personal level through personalization, and how people can buy a product and where they can buy a product, all these kind of things. And even in the background, the distribution of products and how that system all works, making that more personal and influencing the design and the packaging. But I think that's really going to be the future. There's only going to be more opportunities to connect with customers in the future. That is the trend that we've seen over the last X amount of years, is that there's just more and more opportunities. There's more touch points to connect with people. In the past it would be, you would see an ad, maybe a billboard, there'd be a sales representative, then you buy. But now, you're chatting to them on Twitter, you're chatting to them on WhatsApp, there's just even more. So I think in the future, there's definitely just going to be more opportunity for connection, which is only a good thing, to be honest, because I think as brands will want to be more human, and they want to be more personal, and they'll want to try and form different levels of connection. So I think that's the way branding is going to go. I think that's hugely exciting for branding, and I think brands just need to make sure that it's balanced, and they can at the very start, it's all about expectations and delivering on promises. So don't get caught up on the next hot thing, or the next oh well, let's just all go in on the metaverse, and forget face to face, whatever. Make sure that's kind of fine, but just make sure there's a variety of different ways that people can connect with you, and make sure every single touch point, every single way that people can connect with your brand is authentic and is true, and you're meeting their expectations. But yeah, I think it's really exciting, the future branding, and I definitely think it's going to be more about personality and character and connection, and that's only going to be a good thing.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. This change will go on. I believe probably, 20 years down the line, of course, we will see more changes in the branding, because you have rightly mentioned that what used to be happening 20 years, 10 years back is no longer happening, and it has become more interactive. It's easy to find out a brand in digital media or in probably in internet using it rather than finding it physically. You have rightly mentioned that at 10 years back there used to be an ad in a newspaper or magazines. Probably they might be having a telephone number. Then person has to dial that telephone number in order to get the info about that. But however, at this point of time, the digital media has made the life easy. Number one, it has got gone interactive. If you have any confusion, you can simply write it in a chat. Probably you can tag them, chat it on. You can even put them on comments of that post, and that business will definitely revert in the shortest possible time. So this is changing, and this is bound to change. And with this word Web3 coming across, probably we are expecting many more changes in the brand strategization and way we used to run business. That is also getting changed, and of course, customers' preference is also changing, because customer preference, what used to be here a decade back, is no longer there. Even my preference have changed, your preference have changed, everyone's preferences have changed. So that is one of the key aspect, and this change will happen, and we have to adapt to the changes. That's what is the key factor. I think that brings us to the end of this discussion. Tom, it has been wonderful speaking with you. A lot of good pointers we got, and brand strategy is a very, very key component of business. And you have explained this in a wonderful manner, in an amazing manner, and in the most simple terms, I must say. Any closing remarks would you like to give?
I would just say to this, I'd say to the startups who listen to this, don't forget your brand. Spend some time on your brand strategy. Think about how that's going to be translated into a visual identity. Unfortunately, branding is not just a logo. There's a lot more to it than that. So, and I think, the more investment that you put in at the start, the less you're going to be competing on price, down the road. So, really makes a lot of sense. And I think to kind of establish businesses and brands, I think there's always something more you can do with your brand. Make sure you're revisiting your strategy regularly. Make sure your brand is working, as hard as you are. I'd like to say that, you really want to kind of translate the love that you have for your business into value, for everybody else. So, and that, the way that can kind of come through, and the way people will connect with your business is through your brand. So, make sure it's working hard, revisit your strategy. And there's lots of little things that you can do that actually require very little investment, that can, bring you lots of rewards kind of over a long time. So, revisit, who you're doing it for, your customers, and who's buying your offering, and then see how you can connect with them in different ways. You know, are you telling your story well? You know, are there story behind your product? How's your messaging looking? How's the visual identity? You know, is your packaging different on the shelves? All this kind of thing. You know, all these little tweaks that you can make on your brand as it evolves over time. You know, I think if you stop working on your brand, that's kind of the moment where things just start to deteriorate. So, you know, I think branding, you've got to just kind of constantly be working on and keep moving forward. Otherwise, because as soon as you stop, you know, you're kind of moving backwards. So yeah, but it's very exciting time to be building a business and investing in your brand and connecting with people on lots of different levels, kind of all over the world, and you know, the future is very exciting. So yeah, I mean, what I would say is, you know, if you need any help, or you want to read some more of you know, what I write about, I write a lot about brand strategy. So follow me on Twitter, on TomberryCD. And yeah, I write lots about case studies and insights that you can use on your business, and enjoy it. I mean, branding, you know, it's fun, it's exciting, and you know, you're creating connections with your customers, and eventually, you know, people will love your brand, and you know, it'll be their brand for life. So you know, it's a very cool place to be in, and I'm excited I can share my insights and you know, share my thoughts with people, because I think it really helps out. So I'm very grateful that you had me on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. And I must say, everyone, please go ahead and follow him on Twitter, because I personally follow him on Twitter. Some of the finest tweets I have seen about brand strategy, and he has rightly mentioned a lot of case studies he puts on, and these are very, very insightful messages which I keep on getting. So that's how we connected with each other. And so this brings us to the end of this episode. It had been a wonderful session with Tom on brand strategy. A lot, you know, deeper aspects of brand strategy we have just learned. If you have any question, please write in the comment section below. I'll answer it as soon as possible. And at the same time, I'll also give the Twitter handle and the social media handle of Tom in the description. Please go ahead and follow him. Thank you so much, Tom, once again. And I'll be back with many such episodes. Till then, stay tuned, stay connected. Have a great day.